Call this meeting to order. First on today's agenda is an invocation led by Pastor Stanton Thomas. If he would please come to the microphone, introduce yourself, and lead us in your invocation, please.
All right. My name is Pastor Stanton Thomas, pastor of New Vision Missionary Baptist Church, which is probably 3 minutes down the road here from City Hall. Been here before. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for allowing us to open your council meeting with prayer. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we thank you for today. We thank you for these councilmen and women. Ask that you would bless their families. Ask that you would bless the proceedings going on here tonight. We ask that you would just continue to keep us safe from all hurt, harm, and danger. We just thank you for allowing us to wake up this morning and bask in your glory. We ask that you would just allow us to remove ourselves that we may be vessels used by you. We thank you and we praise you. And it's in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Gears, please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen.
Here.
Mrs. Hoover.
Here.
Ms. Royce. Mr. Kelsch.
Here.
Mrs. Winterbauer. Mr. Thompson.
Here.
Mr. Braden.
Here.
All right. Moving on to item E, amendments to the agenda. We have a couple here. We're adding to F, minutes of previous meetings, the minutes from January 1st, 2022, as well as a copy of Tom Shepard's speech from the inauguration on January 1st. And finally, after communications, we will be going into executive session. Which pleasure?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that we amend the agenda as stated.
Second. Second by Mr. Kelsch. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover.
Yes.
Mr. Kelsch.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, sir.
All right, moving on to item F, minutes of previous meetings. Mr. Braden,
Motion that we accept the minutes as written.
have a second? Second, Mrs. Franzen. Call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover.
Yes.
Mr. Kelsch.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, sir.
Moving on to item H, we have requests to address council. First tonight, we've got, I believe we have 4 requests first tonight. It's Frank and Jeannie Stanton. If you would please come up to the microphone, introduce yourselves, give us your address, and you have 5 minutes to address council.
Thank you. Jeannie and Frank Stanton, we live at 4022 Burwood Avenue. What else did you need from me? My address and my name? Okay. So hello and thank you for your time this evening. I'm here with my husband Frank regarding a driveway we installed at 3850 Burwood Avenue. You all have packets with a lot of information that he put together for you. I am here to highlight some things that are included in that packet. There is a letter from realtors who have been in the business for over 35 years, specializing in Norwood, Oakley, and Pleasant Ridge, stating that this limestone gravel is environmentally friendly, that its attractiveness and durability will add value to our property and value to our neighbors' homes as well. There's a letter from the chief building official of Hamilton County. This type of driveway is something that is allowed within Hamilton County. Loose stones or gravel have a positive environmental impact. Gravel allows rainwater to seep into the ground and helps eliminate storm runoff. Our neighbor to the right of us no longer gets water in his basement on the side of his house that butts up to this new driveway. This is due in part to the extra channel that we dug to direct rainwater to the back of our yard. I would also like to tell you that I have lived in Norwood for 26 years. We currently own 2 properties on Burwood Avenue. We take special care in our landscaping and upkeeping of our yards, our gardens, and our homes. The driveway at 3850 Burwood is aesthetically pleasing and one of the nicer driveways on our street. And very importantly, we are here not to ask for you to do a blanket approval of gravel driveways in Norwood. This is a lot of engineering went into this driveway, a lot of thought. The limestone driveway that my husband and I installed involves certain criteria to be done correctly. We used a base of 6 inches of crushed concrete. I mean, we dug out 25-gallon buckets, went to the garden, to the Williams Avenue garden.
300 there and about another 150 to other places.
So 450, I mean, like, a lot of love and effort went into this, digging it out and putting in crushed, he made me help him to do a lot of this stuff. Crushed concrete and then a permanent stone border placed on top of another 6 inches of poured concrete border around all of the gravel. And the border needs to be high enough to contain the gravel or the limestone. So it was engineered amazingly, just there to help. And so neither I nor Frank are expert at writing the wording that would be involved in making an amendment to the ordinance, but the above points could be helpful language if you decide to do so.
Thank you. Any questions?
Sure, thank you, Mr. President. So, Mr. and Mrs. Stanton, do you have any other relations in Norwood? I know some Stantons.
We don't, no.
So, this isn't the first time that I've heard. Have you had some dealings with the building department, and the reason why you're here is that they have an issue with your driveway? And
So there were no complaints from neighbors, but we heard that, we got a letter from Mark Reeves saying there was a complaint, but it was Mike, I think, one of the guys, we've dealt with them with another driveway issue, and they were wonderful. And they, obviously they're looking at it, and frustrating to us is we didn't, when he did this, we had no idea that it was not an acceptable driveway option. We later found that out at 4022 Burwood when we had to get a telephone pole moved to actually get a driveway, that I finally have one. So we didn't know, but apparently somebody from the building department was walking around and saw that and thought, well, wait, this is not acceptable. It's not one of the approved, does that answer?
absolutely. Can I follow up? Sure. Thank you, sir. So, when you say that they were wonderful, are we talking about the building department?
Yeah, their building department's great for me.
Oh, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm self-employed in Norwood for 25 years, and this is the first incident with gravel driveways that I've heard about, so this isn't, so basically, have they told you to work towards changing this ordinance so you can keep your driveway? Is that where you're at here?
So, okay, you want to?
They asked us, they told us that to comply with the Norwood laws, we would have to take away all the gravel and go back to the concrete pads that we had. And of course, what we don't want to do, those concrete pads, we included some pictures of other driveways on the street, and our concrete pads looked almost exactly like those, which after time, they're going to crack, they're going to move, and they were never quite poured right to begin with because they go straight, and then about 3/4 of the way through, they kind of dogleg off to the left.
And so what, in the letter that said, hey, you guys have not, this is not the correct improved thing, said, if you want, you can appeal. So we contacted Mark, hey, what do we do? Went in front of Board of Zoning Appeals, and we asked them, I didn't know, like asking for like an exception. Like, look how pretty this is beautiful, our neighbors all love it. It's working great for many issues, it's environmentally friendly. And they just basically said the way that the law was written was black and white so that they could not make an exception. And we were kind of confused at that because we thought that was sort of where we would ask for the exception.
We were asking basically for a variance, and I guess a variance after the fact. and that was denied to us. So that's why we're.
And so
here.
they said what you need to do is get in front of council and ask for them to amend.
Actually, the suggestion to come
The
before
ordinance.
council came from the chief building inspector from Hamilton County. That's where, he recommended that because at one point he was in a city council and he said that would have the best effect.
Mr. Kell?
Thank you, Mr. President. If I could, I'm just been sitting here just looking through these pictures. I just want to say, I mean, it's obvious that a lot of work went into this, and I think it looks lovely. I think it's awesome looking.
Thank you.
And I would just have to kind of say, I feel like maybe the building department is just trying to go on the laws they have currently. I would hope that they don't dislike this, because it does look very nice. And I'm looking here, you even got a letter from one of your neighbors.
Yes.
That says,
Our next door
you know,
neighbor.
how much
So
they
that's
enjoy
it.
it. And,
He's out in his yard all the time. He's got 2 dogs.
yeah, and with the flooding issues I'm dealing with over in my ward, you know, he's saying he's not had as much water in his basement
Right.
and all that kind of thing, and,
So where our concrete, where our gravel is very flat. It's super flat.
Yeah.
And we have 2 downspouts that would come empty into that area on 2 separate sections of the driveway. And it would create, in a bad rain, incredible puddles that would last for a day, and then when they went away, it would be mud for a week.
Yeah.
And so we channeled it. There's a couple pictures there that show a channel halfway through that we redirected all that water to the back of the yard. And so now we had water in our basement, he had water in his basement. And by doing that, you know, we took some time to figure it out. By doing that, now neither of us have that kind of water in the basement.
yeah, and it seems like to me, like, going up to the house, it is a concrete pad,
It is.
and it's accented
Yes.
with gravel,
if
so
you-
you're not
if you-
driving on that gravel by the road.
And if you actually, there's a, in the letter that's written by the Hamilton County
Chief building
Chief
inspector.
Building Inspector, he mentions the fact that one of the downfalls of like gravel is this dust, but he said, you guys just totally bypass that because all up 10 feet of that going up to the gravel is solid,
And
so.
what I would hope is maybe that ordinance is there, or that verbiage in that ordinance is there to stop people from just dumping gravel in the whole driveway.
For sure.
Down to the sidewalk or the street, so you got gravel on the street. What it appears like you guys have done is kind of seclude that from happening, and it's gravel
Right.
from the house back. I plan on doing something similar at my house, and I didn't know we couldn't do this, you know, just along my house where it is for water and stuff like that. So I think, just based on this, I mean, I think I would support, you know, maybe an amendment to an ordinance to allow something like this. I mean, just like anything else in the building department, you guys submit plans, you know, architectural drawings or what have you. You should have to do the same thing, just so they know, hey, you're not just dumping gravel all the way to the street.
Absolutely, and so I spoke with somebody and they agreed with me, excuse me for a second, that we don't want to just say, okay, gravel driveways in Norwood are fine. You know, like, you really have to follow these rules. My husband and I, mainly him, but I did help, and it was a lot of work, you know, digging it all out, putting all the crushed concrete down, tamping it, not just putting it, you know what I mean, like, and we'd be happy to sit down with you in the language and the wording that would be required to do that, and to have the right footers for the bordering pieces, you know, like, just, we're not experts, he's the one that engineered it, you know, but we would be happy to sit down with you and share language on that.
Yeah, I mean, I would just like to personally thank you for bringing this to us.
Thank you.
I think this is definitely something, there could be a process done to allow in the future, and I would definitely support looking into that.
Appreciate that.
Any other questions? Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mr. President. So here's your problem. The people that came before you that wanted, because I know that there were, that wanted to do gravel driveways in Norwood. And there's a reason why we have building codes and ordinances and there's a way to get past that. I'm assuming it's through the building department, maybe a question to the law director or anyone who might know that. If you wanted to change that, I'm not even sure it's in our purview to actually allow that. That has to be changed through building codes, and we have them for a reason. So I just want to play devil's advocate here. I'm sure your driveway looks fantastic, and it sounds like a lot of thought went into it, and I can appreciate that being a contractor myself. However, we do have rules, and they're there for a reason. So we'd have to, you'd have to get the building codes changed. And the problem you have, again, is people before you wanted gravel driveways and have been told no. So, and here, so anyway, that's what I see. I'm not going to go on, but Mr. Moore maybe can elaborate on how you would change that building code.
Mr. Moore?
I don't know off the top of my head, because I didn't get a copy of that before the meeting, the question is whether it's a part of the zoning code or whether it's part of the building code. Council itself can amend the building code, and they can that's within their purview to do that. If it's the zoning code, and I honestly don't remember off the top of my head, if it's the zoning code, then the planning commission has to take a look at it first, and then do that process, and then it comes to council.
Okay.
So I would point out, since they're on the opposite side of the block from me, but if you go to Ivanhoe, just south of Delaware, and take a look at the 2 gravel driveways there that are on a slope, that's the downside of a gravel driveway. And so that's the thing to be careful of if council and or the planning commission is going to take a look at this.
Write it so that it's not, there is no, and Frank had written that there is no slope to it. There's no, whatever the percentage of your.
And some things that you haven't seen, we recommended that if there's a 15-degree grade, that it would not be allowed. So we want to see it done right, because if there's other driveways done, hopefully as nice as ours, that's a plus. And I think you've seen pictures of a lot of the driveways that are on our street that, they are all legal in terms of Norwood, but they look horrible. They look as bad as our driveway looked, which is why we made the effort to correct it.
I mean, I'd also like to interject, and I know he said that the Hamilton County gentleman told you to get in front of council. I believe that the Board of Zoning, when we went, and they said our next step was to go in front of council.
They had a different plan.
I'm confused.
Mr. Kelch?
I think, Mr. President, just looking at the letter they provided from the building department, it says the property is in violation of Norwood planning and zoning ordinance, and the use and/or structure is a violation of Norwood Building Code, section 1305.01. And then it goes on to talk about a portion of the driveway above reference address paved, large gravel, and is not permitted per the Norwood zoning code. So it says building code and zoning code, so I'm not sure kind of what that means for as far as us being able to change it. But in the top paragraph, it kind of does make it, and it references the building code in the section. So maybe that is something we can maybe look at, talk to Mr. Reeves and the building department, and maybe even the Norwood Zoning Appeals Board, and just kind of see their thoughts, where they stand with that kind of decision. Because right now, to me, it feels like they're just trying to enforce an ordinance they have on the books, and maybe they wouldn't be opposed to having certain things changed so that they don't have to do that in the future, and they can just kind of force other codes. That's something I think that us as a council definitely should look into.
Any other questions or comments? Mrs. Hoover?
Thank you. My question, I guess, to the entire room is, what would the next steps be? Would this go into committee? Is this a conversation we would need to have with the building, with the law department?
I would suggest that we put it into the housing committee. And through that committee, contact the necessary individuals to figure out a way forward.
Thank
Any
you.
other comments, questions?
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Next on our request to address council is Bishop Sonny James.
Good evening. First, let me just start off by saying that was a beautiful addition, bringing in a very good brother, a very dear friend of mine. We've worked together for a number of years, have Pastor Stanton come in and to open council with prayer. That was just awesome, and I commend that and all things like that. Also, given respect and a time of care for those that are still battling with these different viruses, even some of those that are part of this city council. those that have battled with it. And now on the other side of it, my youngest son, Lemuel, has COVID, and he had been out of the home for about a month, working and just been so super busy. So we certainly know that it's affecting a lot of families, even now. On this weekend coming up in this week, we know that it's one of the most celebrated times anywhere around the country. And we will be celebrating the late and the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. throughout many communities across the country. In fact, many residents, leaders, and communities have put together and organized certain events to honor Dr. King and what he's meant to this nation. We applaud that, all of those accomplishments that he's made. In fact, there are several celebrations planned right here in Norwood. In fact, last year, as many of you know, my wife's program Elevations and I hosted our very first public march last year on into February, where we had several events. And we applaud Mrs. Hoover for participating with us last year as well. And so we will continue to do much of that again this year. In fact, I'm excited because this year I want to announce that we also will have marches throughout the weekend and on the day of the actual celebration. But this year it's going to be very unique. If any of you would expect anything different from me. But we're doing pop-up marches. And I don't know if you're familiar with the youth back in the day or not too long ago. They would go to a mall and just out of nowhere, they'd just break out in dances and they'd have pop-up dances. Well, that's what we're going to celebrate here in Norwood, Ohio on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Pop-up marches. And so anyone who desires to be positive and to come in and celebrate with us, you are more than welcome to just pop up. And a lot of people might say, well, Bishop James, where do you start? Well, that's going to be the part for us to have fun with. We will begin there at the park, at the corner where the Speedway is, and then from there you just have to figure it out, because it'll be pop-up marches all over the city simultaneously and so on and so forth. But before I sit down, I wanted to make sure that we understand that there are many other notable individuals of color and or business owners who deserve acknowledgement for their accomplishments as African Americans right here amongst us in Norwood. And just to mention a handful, maybe you guys can make it a point to get to know them or go by and support them and help to equal the playing field for everyone. But just to give a shout out to my friend Ty of AJ's Cheesesteaks in the BP parking lot on Montgomery Road, Miss Olivia McNair, who is a business owner on Carthage Avenue and for Stoney's, former Norwood High School graduate, Mr. Dominique Steele. I'm so proud of him. He also wrestled and trained alongside my oldest son, Boom Boom, who went on to be a pro MMA fighter, now employed by the city of Norwood. Yay! Boom Fitness, the owner and CEO, happens to be my eldest son, Robert Boom Boom James, also a Norwood graduate, went on to be a pro fighter, a belt holder. Now he opened his own fitness center right here in Norwood. And on the 23rd of this month, he hosts the Boom Belt Battle. As you all know, when we did our pro events, we always award our winners with world championship belts. So that's going to be exciting. In fact, within 3 hours of announcing ticket sales, all of the VIP tables were all gone, and almost all of them were sold out. And so I'm very proud of my son that he's come back into Norwood, and his slogan is bettering one's overall potential. No Sweat is a unique fitness apparel and gear shop online place right here in Norwood, the owner and CEO. They've been beating down the doors for years. Let's really try to support Pastor Kirsten, who is now ordained as pastor, my wife, only months away from completing her actual doctorate degree. Yeah, from a master's degree in forensic science, now being one of perhaps the only or very few black doctors in Norwood, or maybe Norwood's history. We'll have to research that. She's also the proud executive director of Elevations Enrichment After School Program, where she's been changing the lives of our youth, mentoring, tutoring them, helping them to explore the impossible, and invoking their minds to be the change. This is her 6th year, and we haven't had a whole lot of support, so maybe this year we'll get on. Thank you for the time, and finally, give myself a toot in February, December the 12th, appointed as bishop, and life has been really getting busy for me, and prayerfully this year my book will be finished. It'll be a tell-all book about communities. I've got to hold off until my attorneys give me clearance. A book about Norwood and what it's like to be a black man with the history and the challenges coming through the ranks here in our community, and so we're working on that. The whole idea, though, guys, is let's have a great year. Let's celebrate each other. I'm applauding the newness that obviously God has brought into our community. I'm just excited to be a part of this community. Let's move forward. Let's keep blessing God. Let's keep supporting each other, and let's build it black. Let's help somebody that struggled along the way, someone of color, to help make life equal for them. God bless you all. Peace.
Next, we have Mary C. Miller.
First of all, I want to say congratulations to all of you guys, new and old councilmen. I was asked by one of the new council members who's not here to bring the plans so that you guys would have a copy, especially the new people. I know John and Eric, you have one, and Chris, you have one. By the way, my name is Mary C. Miller, and I live at 1845 Hopkins Avenue. You guys know me, so I feel like I don't have to do that. But I also brought I want to go over first, just look at the community agreement. This was presented in 2019, but I do feel like it's still very valid. A group of residents here performed one-on-one interviews with people who lived in Norwood, and through those interviews for several weeks and months, met together to come up with this plan. And so I thought it would be kind of cool for you to see this because it was done by residents. There were people from city employees, school district representatives, Lifetime and New Norwood residents, business owners and employees, people of color, all age groups, all 4 wards, Democrats and Republicans. And if you look on the back of this, you see the names of the steering committee and all the partners that participated. So I just think that's really important when we look at this plan because it tells you that people from all sectors of Norwood were part of participating in this. The data's a little off because it was 2010 census, but the rest of the information here I think is very valid. As you can see, there were 8 areas that the data was analyzed and fell into. And so people in our city came up with overall vision and priorities, which is on the first page on the inside cover. Through resident interviews and community meetings, a common vision for Norwood emerged. Residents wanted to work together to make Norwood a diverse and thriving community that provides spaces and activities to support and welcome all residents and encourage people to connect with their neighbors, to maintain roads, parks, and community assets through innovation and collaboration, and to encourage entrepreneurs and the revitalization of the Montgomery Road corridor. So as you can tell, those are some things not only that Norwood Together has been working on, but the city's been working on. And so Candace also asked that I give you a copy of the Montgomery Road plan, which is part of what the vision and priorities were when this group put this agreement together. So I went through this, and a lot of these things, because of the new administration, because of the hard work of like the Parks Committee on our previous council, a lot of these things are in process. But I want to keep the vision in front of everyone, that we keep working together to get these things done. And it's not, as I said at the last council meeting that James was at, or that when we were recognized, that it's not us, it's everybody working together that get these things done. So I just wanted to thank you and just say, keep this somewhere safe where you don't lose the vision, and to realize that we're all invited to work together for Norwood's future. So, thank you so much.
Questions or comments? Mr. Braden?
You called me old.
I'm sorry.
You called me old?
Say that again?
You called me old.
Oh, I'm sorry. Returning.
I'm joking.
Is that a better word? Returning. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcy. Next, we have Kate Wetzel.
Hello, thanks everyone. My name is Kate Wetzel. I live at 3811 Regent. So I just wanted to address council and just bring some light and pass some knowledge around about a new award and event that is happening this year. So the Gem of the Highlands Award is new this year. It's hosted by Norwood Together and presented by Ventura Building Group. This award is to recognize Norwood residents who make significant contributions to their communities, to their neighborhood, their school, community during 2021. So the awards are open to adults and youth that live in Norwood. And the winners of the Gem of the Highland Community Award should exhibit some or all of the following characteristics: demonstrate a strong commitment to Norwood, have a positive vision for the community, clearly show concern for members of the community, successfully complete a project and responsibilities, and then demonstrate the ability and initiative to bring people together to facilitate positive change, and finally, provides creativity in thinking and planning and maintains a positive attitude. So we need the community's help in identifying these gems. So right now, there is a form open on NorwoodTogether.org's website. It's a Google form. You can submit your who you think the volunteers are in the community. So we need as much help as we can get. All the instructions and then the criteria are on there. If you need help, you can email norwoodtogether@gmail.com, and someone can help walk you through that submission process. The deadline to submit your selections are February 5th, and then the winners will be notified by February 12th. And then on the 24th, there'll be an event to celebrate all of these winners at the Ventura. It starts at 5:30. And if you want to come to the event, we just ask that you register at Eventbrite. It's free, but just so we have an idea of who's coming. But, so any questions? And I have some flyers to pass out if people have questions or anything like that. So just want to make sure we get the word out and make sure that, everyone knows I think this is just a really positive thing for the community. We have a lot of people that do a lot of good work, and they should be recognized.
Could you repeat again where people can go to make the nomination?
It is at norwoodtogether.org. There is a tab that's called Gem of the Community. All the instructions are there, the details of the event, and then there's a link to a Google form that you can submit your selections.
Any other questions? Mrs. Franzen?
Yes, I just wanted to have you repeat the day and the time for the celebration.
Yes, it is on February 24th at 5:30.
Good, because I definitely wrote that down wrong.
Sorry.
I also wanted to know if you can submit multiple people, or is it just one person, one submittal?
You can submit multiple.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mr. President. So is it, you mentioned, is it for 2021?
Yeah, so actions in 2021, so,
Perfect.
or prior, since it's the first year.
Okay. Or prior. Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
All right, thanks so much for your time. And I will just set these up here if you want to. Very good.
Thanks. All right, moving on, we have no reports of standing committees. We have no third reading of ordinances or resolutions. No second readings of ordinances or resolutions, so we'll move on to introductory readings of ordinances and resolutions. We have one resolution calling for a day of service in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. on Monday, January 17th, 2022. Mrs. Hoover.
I request that we do one reading in full.
Okay. Request is for one reading in full. Second by Mrs. Franzen. All right. Call the roll, please. Oh, sorry. Any discussion? Okay. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Franzen.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover.
Yes.
Mr. Kelch.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, sir.
Resolution calling for a day of service in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. on Monday, January 17th, 2022. Whereas in 1994, the United States Congress established the Martin Luther King Jr. federal holiday as a national day of service, a day on, not a day off, for communities to aspire and act in solidarity to further achieve the dream of equality. And whereas in the decades since Congress enacted that distinction, there have been marches, church services, community projects, essay contests, oratory debates, artistic expressions, and conversations to help individuals, families, and communities embrace their role in creating a just society. And whereas in Norwood, Ohio, residents repeatedly demonstrate commitment to come together and support one another, creating trust and hope in the midst of personal and collective adversity. And whereas, in recognition of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and in support of the countless Norwood citizens who give of their time and effort in the same spirit of improving the lives of others, and whereas in 2022, we can still make progress towards the dream of racial equality, social justice, and living wages for all, therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Norwood, State of Ohio, that Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Monday, January 17th, 2022, shall be a day of service locally, a day where families, neighbors, and friends use their time, talents, and treasure to support projects in the city that accomplish a vision of freedom and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Gears. That is all we have for ordinances or resolutions. So moving on to administrative reports. We do not have any, so moving on to unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business? Mr. Kelch.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I was just talking with SSD Powers today and last week a little bit. I just wanted to give a little bit of an update that on the Elm Avenue flooding project that we started here. JMA's now ready to start surveying the area like Elm, Maple, and Ridgeway to start looking for a solution on how they're going to have to approach the land there. And letters are going to be going out to residents here shortly. And I'm going to be getting a copy of the letter, and I'm going to be putting it out on Facebook as well. I'm hoping the city Facebook page will do that also. And if anybody wants a copy, I can send it to you so you guys can put it out, just so more people are seeing it, so people aren't, shocked and kind of surprised when people are out there doing work and might come close to their property or on. Mm-hmm. So I just want to share that update. And that project seems to still be moving very smoothly and expediently. So that's a good thing. So that's all I got.
Great, thank you. Any other unfinished business? Nope. Moving on to new business. Any new business? Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have one quick thing here. I've noticed, looking through the news, that we have a company here in Norwood that's making some national news. Evidently, he printed some T-shirts up, and one of them got on Joe Burrows as he's walking into the Kansas City game. So I just wanted to mention that at OTO Supply here in Norwood. Mm-hmm. And I'm really happy to announce, that he's doing good things, and I can't wait to get one of those T-shirts.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks. Go Bengals.
If I get through the chair to Mr. Braden.
Mr. Kelce.
I've seen that place a lot, and I don't think you can go in and shop there. They have an online website?
It's a good question. I just learned about it. I wanted to mention it, so
Yeah.
let's blow this guy up, man.
Hey, anything Joe
I think
Burrow,
they
I
just
like.
moved into the new space over there on Norwood Avenue.
Nice.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Ms. Franzen?
So with the 5K, we've used them for our race shirts for the past 2 years or 3 years. And they're just really great. And they did just move into that new place in Norwood, on Norwood Avenue. Forget the exact one, but it's a new warehouse. I don't think they do have a store per se, but they do a lot of orders, and I know all of their stuff has just been really high quality. I'm not getting paid by them to make this.
You don't have a phone number, do you?
A phone? No, I don't. But if you search for OTO Supply Company, he's just been a really great guy. They're a great company, and I'm glad that they're getting that national attention,
Yes.
too. I hadn't seen that one.
Congratulations, buddy. Good work.
Any other new business? Mrs. Hoover?
Thank you. I just wanted to say a little bit more about the MLK Day. I guess I can put that under this. This has been very much a group effort. Very excited. I was down with COVID last week, so this was sort of a fever dream project of mine. But with the blessing of the mayor and Clint, I was able to get a banner, which might be up now, that will be going up over on Montgomery Road in celebration and bringing awareness to the MLK Day of Service. The money did not come from the city, that came from my account, so there's no cost to the city for that. I've reached out to as many of the Norwood nonprofits that I could. Granted, it's COVID and lots of people are understaffed, but we do have a lovely list of volunteer opportunities for Monday, the 17th. You can get that information on the city website. On Facebook, it's on Norwood Strong. It's on my Susan Hoover for Norwood page, and I believe they're going to be sending out an email as well. Some of the options for day of service on MLK Day, that Monday, is Baby Bear is going to be having some people come and help sort the materials. They're also going to be having coffee in the morning and pizza for lunch, so it sounds like a really great deal. Zion United Church of Christ up on Indian Mound is going to be doing a little mini food drive, and we're also asking for people to come between 12 and 2 to help with some light sorting of items. Grace UMC is rebranding. It used to be Soul Food Wednesdays. It's now Come to the Table, and they're going to be doing an additional meal on that Monday, and they would love to have people come and help prepare and serve the food from 4 to 6. The community center would like a couple volunteers to help clean out some other spaces. And then Norwood Together will be having people also at the community center putting together the welcome bags. So there's a lot of opportunities in Norwood on that day. If that doesn't feel safe for people because of COVID or jobs or what have you, I also have created a list of some other things for other options in Norwood as well as in the surrounding areas. There's always a huge blood drive on MLK Day, and I would encourage anyone who can donate to donate. We desperately need it. You can go online and register a friend to vote or a family member to vote. You can collect items for a food pantry. You can just go out your front door and pick up some garbage. There are some other ongoing community opportunities. New Vision Baptist Church, the pastor who is here this evening, starting us in prayer, they have a really huge food distribution every Tuesday and Thursday, and they're always looking for volunteers to help for that. Dress for Success, if you know, has recently moved into Norwood. They have a lot of opportunities for people to help sort their items. You can look at fostering a dog or cat. I know lots of people who are doing that. I don't do it because I just keep them. So that's not an option for me. And when people are doing these volunteer opportunities, whether it's impromptu, whether it's unorganized, I'd love it if you could take a picture, hashtag Norwood MLK Service. One of my goals is to really get people excited, activated, interested. When you see your neighbor doing something good, you're more likely to do something good, and let's sort of start creating that energy. This is the first year for it. I'm hoping that every year forward is even bigger and bigger. So, and if you have a community event you'd like to add, please reach out to me on my email, shoover@norwoodohio.gov, and we will try to get you on that list. Thank you.
I'll go ahead and go now. I've got several things to discuss. Mr. Miracle, who's not here today, has been sort of shepherding a checklist of things that we need to get done in order to get out of financial emergency. I think there's about 34 items on that list. He and I were going over some of them, and we decided that I think some of them we can actually get going, if not completely handle, within committees and council. And so it's just a few things that we can knock off the list. So I'm going to put in Finance Committee. First one is formal written procedures for handling petty cash for the city. The second one is creation of a formal bidding policy for the city. And the third is a formal purchasing policy for the city. So we have to have these things like written down as policy, and we have to vote and say, yes, this is, codified for the city. Those three are for the Finance Committee. I would like to put in the Housing Committee, the development of a formal water meter reading policy. This will discuss how often a resident is allowed to submit their own reading before somebody has to come out and actually physically look at it, along with, late things and all that. We just need to have it set and written down. Next, I would like to put the matter of developing a city charter in the Charter Committee. Next, I would like to put the discussion of purchase and use of portable speed bumps or speed humps for our streets in the Infrastructure Committee. We had started talking about that in previous council and Streets Committee, and I think it's worth continuing. And lastly, in the Housing Committee, I will go ahead and put the gravel driveway issue that was discussed earlier. And that is all. I will, I'm not going to schedule finance or charter committees. I need to check with auditor and treasurer and find out when they're available. I probably will, most of my committees I'll probably try to have in the hour before regular council meetings. So like started doubling things up last council and it seemed to work okay. But, you can schedule your meetings whenever you like. Any other new business? Ms. Brayton?
Thank you. So I've had discussions with a few people. I want to discuss, if it's okay, the rules of council that we have passed at January 1st. So, and number 6, it says the notice of any persons requesting notice of, I guess you want to read it just so you're familiar with what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So, requesting notice, any person upon request and payment of reasonable fee to be determined by clerk of council by obtaining reasonable advance notification of all meetings in which any specific type of public business is to be discussed. This reasonable advance notification may include, but not limited to, mailing the agenda of meetings to all subscribers on a mailing list, or mailing notices in self-addressed stamped envelopes provided by the person in the email. Member of council shall receive the same notice. So discussions come up on how much the fees would be. Like, I understand that if someone comes in and requests forms, that's going to cost money, the paper, the printing, and I understand that. I'm curious on how that conflicts with our sunshine laws, as far as when someone wants to sign up for the sunshine law, they get the request anyway, right? If someone goes to the sunshine list and wants to be placed on that list, they get the information anyway. So I'm just wondering what the reasonable fee would be. Do we have that determined? Or are we going to do that on a case-by-case basis, depending on what they want? Obviously, I can see that happening. But questions on what the fees would be and how would we go about billing someone? And as far as who bills that? Does the clerk office bill that, or does that bill? Do we have a what do you call that? Purchase order? Like, how does that happen? Discussions came up about that, so I was just curious. I just kind of want to get it out there, just to find out if anybody had any thoughts on that, or appreciate it.
Just from my perspective, if we want to discuss it further, being that's already been voted on, I would say put it into Law and Ordinance Committee and discuss it then, but I don't know if Mr. Moore has anything to add to that.
Mr. Gears may be able to correct me, he's had more dealings directly with as part of the clerk's office, but I don't recall anybody actually getting written notice of meetings, being on the sunshine list and getting written notice. My guess is that this is a holdover from before email and before we could do the sunshine list. I mean, maybe that Linda Maston would do it, I don't know. And I would guess that the process for paying the fee would be like getting a building permit. You go and you fill out with whatever form the clerk comes up with, and then you walk down to the treasurer's office and you pay whatever the fee is, and then you come back up and show the receipt that you paid. And I think it might be worth putting in the Law and Ordinance Committee and taking that out, that we'll send email notice, which is what with the sunshine list, we just send by email, and nobody has a problem with that anymore. I'm sure there was a time, obviously there was a time when that didn't work, and people wanted either, if it was hand-delivered for meetings, you probably could have had that set up, or, we're going to have to mail it out. But if the time was that you had to type up a separate copy or send them a carbon, or even when copies cost a lot more, then if we're going to send you 50 pages over the course of a year, or 150, depending on what it is, then there would be a fee that would be involved in that. For public records, if it's over a certain amount, you can charge copy fees, basically, for doing that. Generally, we don't. We can send stuff electronically, or we just print it out because we don't want to fool with that. But it might be worth taking a look at the rules and taking that out, because I can't imagine we want to volunteer to mail people copies of all the agendas. And for the most part, it wouldn't get there in time to do them any good.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Appreciate that. We can look at that. I just wanted to bring that up. It was something that came to mind and having discussions with others. So
That's great.
I appreciate both of you.
Would you like to go ahead and put that in Law and Ordinance
We
Committee?
can absolutely put that in. I'll make a motion that we place number 6 of the rules of council into the Law and Ordinance Committee.
All right. You don't have to motion.
No rush. Take the time on that meeting. There's no rush.
Right.
I appreciate.
No, it's good to clean them up. Any other new business? Mrs. Franzen?
I just wanted to let everyone know that I'll be trying to schedule the committee meetings that I chair here in the next month or two. If there's anyone that you would want to come to the Parks Committee or the Infrastructure Committee to speak on things that are already in process or that need to become in process, I'm going to, once Liz Mize, the secretary, gets back from dealing with her illness, I was going to have her send out times that would work for you all. I'll try to make it so it's before council, because that seems to work, and, try to cut off Eric's time if I can.
Great, yeah. Great.
That's how it goes. So, we'll see what happens there, and let me know if there's anything in particular you'd like to talk about with my committees, too. My first time, so I don't know how this really goes, so I figured I'd just say it. Yeah, it's happening. I'm aware that I'm on these committees, and I need to do something about it.
You'll do great.
Any other new business? All right. Moving on to communications. First, we have from Mayor Victor Snyder, Mayor's Courts Fines.
Dear Mr. President and council members, enclosed, please find the report for Norwood Mayor's Court for the month of December 2021. Should you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Sincerely, Victor Snyder, Mayor, City of Norwood.
Ms. Braden?
Thank you, Mr. President. A motion that we receive and file the letter.
Seconded by Mr. Kelch.
Yes.
Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, sir.
Right. That's 5 yeses. Passes? Well, not passes, but I don't know what we say when we receive and file.
Motion passes.
Motion passes.
Letter's been
That's good. It's like it doesn't really passed, but you think I would know what to say after being here for 4 years. Number 2 on our communications, Law Director Keith Moore, Law Director's Annual Report for 2022.
Dear Mr. President and members of council, pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 733.62, I am pleased to submit the attached report of the activities of the Law Director's Office for the year ending December 31, 2021. While there is no need to read the full report in full at the January 11 council meeting, I am requesting the opportunity to discuss a few items under administrative reports. Sincerely, Keith D. Moore, Law Director.
Mr. Braden?
A motion, we receive and file the letter.
Ms. Franzen?
Law director to talk for a couple minutes.
Yeah, can we, if we can let Mr. Moore discuss his letter.
Great.
Perfect.
Ms. Franzen, you second?
I second that.
Yes. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, sir.
5 yeas, motion passes. Mr. Moore, if you would like to discuss the things you want to discuss.
Sure, thank you, Mr. President Pro Tem. Just a couple of things. There's a lot of stuff the law department does. It's kind of a weird, it's a very weird kind of legal practice because it covers everything that might affect the city. So in any given week, we may have something about, what do we do with this city property? We have a question about whether this person is entitled to this vacation buyout. Is this a public record? Who has to be invited to this meeting? Wait a minute, does this person get health insurance or not? And there's a host, it covers an incredible amount of areas. And by and large, most of the questions that come in are not about things that Tim or I actually know the answer to up front. They're the ones we have to look up. And sometimes it's like, I don't even know where to start looking. They can be really, really exhaustive and complicated, even to get to what should be kind of a simple thing. The other side of it is there's a lot of things that there are no answers because there's a section of the code and it says this, and it's like, well, it's not really clear on this specific situation, and no one has ever taken it to court, so we have no interpretation at all. So sometimes we just make the best guess. There were a few things. The biggest one I just wanted to mention, because for me it's the biggest thing that's been hanging over my head since 2016, my first term, when we were served with a multi-million-dollar civil rights lawsuit from 1988. Well, from a conviction of a gentleman in 88, at a time when the city did not have liability insurance because we were going through a real fiscal emergency. We weren't buying tires for the police cars at the time, kind of thing. And we've been defending that case for, 5 years now? 6 years. Coming up, we're in the 6th year, starting the 6th year now. Mr. Gary has attended close to 30 depositions in that case. Early on, I filed a motion to dismiss for failure to state a claim, and we got all but one count knocked out. In 2011, filed the summary judgment motion, had a 2-hour conference call hearing, 10 lawyers on the line for 2 hours. We were an hour and a half in, and the judge said, maybe a phone conference wasn't the way to do this, but we, the plus side is our summary judgment motion was granted, so we won the case. It's now in the process of being appealed. The plaintiff has to file their appellate brief sometime in the next month, and then we'll file a reply to that. But we did win in the trial court, which is huge. And for most of these kinds of cases, they're covered by liability insurance, so insurance attorneys do it. We could have hired outside counsel, which would have cost us, by this point, $200,000, but given Mr. Gary's litigation experience and some of my background, we thought we were in a pretty good place on this. It's just taken an incredible amount of time. So that's a huge thing. I'm very excited about that. I did also want to mention, I mentioned it briefly in the letter, but it's one of those things as an elected official who's in charge of a department. It's one of the things people look at is what's the budget? What's the budget? And if you go back and you look at the line item, here's the law department cost in 2015, 2014, 15, 16 going through. There's a few things that council and the state auditor keep changing that maybe not make me look so good. One of them is kind of internal. When T.A. Brown became the secretary to the law department, he really spends most of his time on tech support for the city because we don't, based on the pay grade, there's no way we're going to get somebody who's really going to be helpful in the law department to come in, but he's been very helpful to the city. That most of his time was billed under public lands and buildings, and I think it was last year the state auditor said, no, that needs to go back under the law department. So included in my budget now is all of the tech support for the city. The other one is outside legal fees, which is primarily labor counsel, dealing with we hire specialty counsel to work with the unions, to work with negotiations and handling grievances and that kind of thing. And that, we don't actually hire the lawyers. It's the administration that does that. And that used to be a separate line item. It is now under my budget. So we had a couple of years where we were spending $90,000 a year on that because we had a lot of problems dealing with the unions because we didn't have any money. That is now undermined. The other one is settlement of claims, and most of the claims, there's very few claims that I can imagine where the city agrees to pay somebody for something they did wrong, that it was the law department that did something wrong. It's most of the claims that come in, and you will see them, the finance committee will see them across their desk, or things like potholes. There are some where there's some injury from some other kind of thing that happened that isn't covered by insurance. We have, one of the things I'm going to talk about in executive session is a possible settlement that would involve that, but that is also now under my budget. So those things can skew. I just want to make that, it's touchy for me, probably nobody else cares. If anybody runs against me in the future, then they might, but I just wanted to be clear to everybody else. There was one thing that came up during the meeting on the policy and procedure stuff for the fiscal emergency requirements to get out of that. For the 3 that were put into the finance committee, we have those. I think the petty cash, I'm not sure if we have one, but I have a version of one from someplace else. But I thought we had those put together, because I've worked on the other 2.
Okay.
On drafts at least. And so I just don't know if the state, where we are now is the state auditor has kicked those back as, oh, they need to be changes, or if we're just still waiting for them. I just wanted you to be aware that we should have pretty much all of the, at least drafts of everything in place.
That's a great place to start.
Yeah. And so check with the auditor, and he would know. Ken probably has some idea, but the auditor would know.
Yeah.
I know there's 100 other things I could talk about, but, because we're busy. I want to thank Tim Gary, and I want to thank T.A. Brown, because they're very helpful. If you have questions, if you have concerns, if you need help with something, feel free to reach out to them. They're here to try to make the city work, and we wouldn't work as well without them. And then if anybody's got any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Mr. Brady?
Mr. Brady?
Thank you, Mr. President Pro Tem. So you just said a whole lot there. I got it. I got the gist of it.
I know.
A whole lot going on, and we appreciate you. So the reason why you're telling us this is because your appropriations just grew, and now you kind of want us to know why this is going on, because all these are being thrown into your budget. And I just want to make sure I'm clear that you just want to make us aware that your budget just grew, and you want to make us aware of that. Is that basically where we're at here?
That's part, over the last couple of years, yeah, things have changed in the budget process and where things are listed. Sure. And so if you were to say, the law department, they cost this much in 2016, and now they're looking at it, he's blowing money. I just want everybody to be aware
All right.
that these are things that didn't used to be my fault.
I wanted to clarify that. Okay, all right.
That's all.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Mr. Moore. Next on communications, Andrew Conlon, Norwood Clerk of Courts, Control Report, Yearly Court Management and Cash.
Oh, Mr. President,
Yes.
very quickly, this, I don't think you could just receive and file this as if read.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Usually it's kind of attached to my annual report, but the last few years I don't get it until after I have to get mine into council. So
Okay. Mr.
it's
Brady?
just the number, it's all the numbers from Mayor's Court for the year.
Okay. Oh, this particular, wait, this one that we're doing right now?
Yeah, from
Oh, we don't have to receive it? We can do, okay.
Receive and file it as if read.
Got it. Mr.
Thank
Brady?
you, Mr. President Pro Tem. Motion to receive and file the letter as if it was read.
Right. Mr. Kelch? All right, second, Mr. Kelch. Call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, sir.
Motion passes. That's it for communications. Moving on to our executive session. If I could have a motion, Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mr. President Pro Tem. I'd like to make a motion that we go into executive session to discuss pending litigation.
I
Mrs.
second
Hoover?
the motion.
Have a second for Mrs. Hoover. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, sir.
Motion passes. We are going into executive session. Right, out of executive session. Next on the agenda is excusing absent members. May I have a motion? Mr. Kelch?
Make a motion to excuse the absent members.
Thank you. Mrs. Hoover?
I second the motion.
Seconded by Mrs. Hoover. Call the roll.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, sir.
Motion passes. Moving on to adjournment.
I wanted to note that we had other business that we had forgotten. That we
Okay.
wanted to appoint someone to the Energy Board.
Okay.
I just announced that now, as opposed to in the new business section. So I don't know how the process goes for this, but that is something we should probably address today.
I believe you can make a summative motion at any time, so I think she can make a
Yeah.
motion currently right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to ask for potential appointees to that Energy Board that Mr. Moore talked about last special
I couldn't
council.
quite hear you, I'm sorry.
So last time, Mr. Moore submitted a letter saying that we had to make an appointee to an Energy Board of the state, and we forgot to do that. Well, we were not able to do that in the first session, the special council meeting. So I move that we do that this council meeting before we adjourn.
All right, do you, we can discuss, but is there somebody you wanted to nominate for that at this point, or?
I was going to nominate myself,
All right.
but I am happy if anyone else would like to nominate themselves. I'm not married to this position.
So the motion is to nominate Mrs. Franzen to the Energy Board. Do I have a second? Second?
I second that nomination.
All right, thank you. Call roll.
Discussion?
Huh?
No discussion?
Oh, sorry, discussion, yeah, sorry. Yes, Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mr. President Pro Tem. I have no issues at all here. You have my blessing. But I'm curious do we have to amend the agenda because this is not on the agenda? Do I see this on the agenda here? I don't. So do we have to amend this agenda? Is this something we just do? Because it's not on the agenda. So do we have to amend the agenda? Then we can handle this.
I'm not sure, Mr. Moore?
Well,
Yeah,
just,
Mr.
just from my understanding of the previous council rule, I know our current ones are different, but I'm saying you can make a summative motion at any time, and we just have to vote on it.
If you want to, I say,
I don't care. I
make a
believe
motion to
that we
amend the
have,
agenda
we have an
to add
agenda.
this, or just make it's fine. I think just make the motion and appoint somebody. It's not,
Yeah, okay.
this is not the kind of thing that somebody's going to file a lawsuit.
Let's do
Okay,
it.
good.
You have my blessing.
Thank you.
All right, the motion, which has been seconded, is to nominate Mrs. Franzen for the Energy Board. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Franzen,
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover,
Yes.
Mr. Kelch,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes?
Mr. Braden.
Yes, sir.
All right, 5 yeses, motion passes. And we have a motion to adjourn. Mr. Kelch,
Make a motion to adjourn.
second.
I second the motion.
Second by Mrs. Hoover. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Franzen,
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover,
Yes.
Mr. Kelch,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, sir.
And that's it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.